Election 2019, Buhari given another 4 years mandate. Is it fair result or not? All this on Platform Media International Political Arena. From our studio, I welcome everybody around the globe who is watching Political Arena on Platform Media International. Today, we say Nigerians have crossed the hardest hurdle ever yet as the elected went to elections and elected Muhammadu Buhari for a second term in office. And Nigerians are still groaning or happy from that election because it's a very divisive election. But of course, Muhammadu Buhari has been given a second term in office, and we still yet to have the governorship and other House of Assembly in the states election coming up soon. But today, the main concern in our studio is to discuss the election fallout. Is it a fair result or not? And other issues that came up during the elections. And as usual, I have my very good friend in the studio, Obi Nziadibe. Obi, welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, we are on the post-election, although we still have more elections to come up, but the major one has taken place.
Yes.
And President Muhammadu Buhari will be given another mandate, 4 years, to 2023. Obi, fair result?
Not in my opinion, not fair results.
Why did they say so?
Well, at no point in time in the history of our country have we seen Nigerians prepared as they were to vote, to exercise their right to choose their leaders. But many of them were disenfranchised. The card reader did not work. The military was used to harass people. Electoral officers were compromised. Electoral materials were not delivered in areas that were in opposition to the APC. And so the sum result of that kind of situation is that the election could not be said to be fair when a sizable percentage of the people were not allowed to exercise their right to vote.
The other school of thought who are hearing you saying this, they might want to argue that there has never been an election in Nigeria that they say unanimity of opinion that is fair or free and fair. We'll go back to in the 50s, Operation Wet here. Of course, you know that. It's because people disagree with the result of the election. In 1979, the Second Republic, Chief Obafemi Awolowo went to the court and it was decided by the notorious 12-2 results. We came to the Third Republic. We had Obasanjo was against the same Buhari. Buhari went to court. The only person which I think is a hero of democracy in Nigeria was President Jonathan, who accepted the results of the election, even when he was the incumbent. He was defeated and he congratulated. Nigeria, no other head of state, no other opposition have ever done that apart from Jonathan. So people want to argue that there's no election in Nigeria that has ever been accepted, and people raise counter opinion.
No, we're not talking about the acceptability of the election results. I'm talking about people's readiness to vote and being prevented from voting. Mm-hmm. You know, in that situation, you cannot say that the election was free and fair. We already know how the elections will go. There are regions in Nigeria that are against Buhari. You know, in certain states in the southwest, they are pro-Atiku. The same thing in the southeast. Yeah. Now, to ensure that election material did not get to those areas, or to ensure that the military were pushed into those areas, or to ensure that the card readers in those areas didn't work as expected, is what I am calling unfairness.
Okay, let's go by this. I have the electoral map. In Southwest, for instance, PDP took to some states.
Yes.
Which is, again, another thing. It's like 60-40 in the Southwest.
Yes.
In the Southeast, PDP almost swept the whole of Southeast. Enugu State, Abia, all went to PDP. So we cannot argue fairly that people were disenfranchised in Southeast because...
Oh, they were. Take for instance in Lagos State, close to 4 million Igbos who live in Lagos who would have decisively voted for the PDP were prevented from voting due to violence. If everyone in the Southeast had voted, the volume of votes, the number of votes.
Remember that Lagos is in Southwest, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yes. So if you had added the number of votes that would have come from Lagos, to add it to what would have come from the Southeast and from the South, in terms of numbers, PDP would have won the elections outright. And so what the APC strategy was to ensure that in those PDP strongholds, every effort was made to ensure that voting either did not take place, or that the candidates did not work, or that the military were there to snatch results, or that the will of the people were subverted and a contrary result was announced after the people had voted.
Okay. Now, again, let me be the devil's advocate here, Mr. Obi. Now, in terms of people disenfranchising, but another school of thought will argue that too, that both major contestants are all from the north, correct?
Yes.
So it won't it be unfair for us to be accusing them that, that's why they are disenfranchising people from this to favor that because we are not from the same region? Both of them are from the north.
No. Okay. Buhari and Atiku all come from the north.
Yes.
But they represent two different
political parties.
Not just two political parties, but two different political ideologies. While Buhari is a hardcore Fulani who is bent on the Islamization of Nigeria, Atiku on the other side is a liberal Muslim who does not see anything wrong in people aspiring to either be Christians or Muslims or doing their business according to their whims and caprices. So Atiku believes in restructuring, which is what we are campaigning for, which we believe will help to advance the interests of Nigeria. On the other hand, Buhari says no to restructuring, and he prefers to have an unwieldy Nigeria that is unmanageable. And that's why people who supported Atiku supported him, because his political philosophy aligns with the aspirations, as opposed to Buhari.
Okay. Then another one that I also want to talk about is the alleged intimidation. Or it's not alleged. People lost their lives. So we cannot be using alleged. It's not allegation because we saw the viciousness and the intimidation. As a matter of fact, the head of state did not help matters by saying whoever snatches the ballot box will be met with death. But of course, some people argued again that they say, well, if you are snatching people's mandates, you should pay for it. Well, did that also help in averting violence or intimidate people who were supposed to vote?
Well, the electoral law does not have any role for the military in our elections. Buhari using the military during this election is an abuse of his powers as a head of state. He has set a precedent, and we do not know where it will end. If future heads of states will use the military to maintain themselves in power, people will say it's no longer elections, but a coup. The Nigerian masses clearly did not want Buhari to go beyond May 29th. They were looking forward to a new leader, but he insisted on continuing, and he has used every tactics in the book.
As a journalist in Nigeria, I covered 1993 elections, the one that was aborted by the military. But again, the military were present in monitoring the elections.
Yeah, we didn't have the 1999 constitution at that time.
Okay. So in Nigerian setup, the military presence is not a new thing though. Because in 1999, when Obasanjo came, the military were also, but to a little extent, not full force. So in a situation where they say the police is incapable of policing the election, and the head of state, whoever is in charge, then both pre-democracy and post-democracy, have always used military to a little extent. But this one was large scale. But again, the argument is that the police is not capable of policing the election. That's why they invited the military. Fair enough?
No, it wasn't fair enough, because in Lagos State, where we should have expected the military to stop the allegation of victimization of Igbo voters in Okota, we didn't see the military there.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's touch on this role now. What is this? There's this intimidation of voters in Okota, and I saw it on YouTube. I saw this. Why? You are an Igbo person.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Why is this tension between the Igbos and Yorubas?
There is tension.
Is it created?
There is no tension whatsoever.
Okay.
It's just that the Igbos prefer Atiku to Buhari.
Okay.
And the people in Lagos believe that Buhari is their man. Okay. And so what they are saying is that if you are an Igbo living in Lagos, you must vote for the man we prefer. And the Igbos are independently minded. They don't want to do that. They want to vote for Atiku. Let what will happen, happen. And until we come to a point in Nigeria where even if you are an Igbo living in Sokoto, you are able to exercise your vote freely and fairly, then we should call for an end to elections.
Okay. Now, the other one, if we are talking about the cons in this election crisis, the election was shockingly postponed in the middle of the night, a few hours to the elections. And of course, you and I know that Nigerians prefer to register in a place where they were born.
Yes.
And some people had traveled and to go and vote, only for them to wake up in the morning to say election is over. And they have to go back to where they live.
And couldn't go back again to vote. Yes.
Was that?
Those were.
Both parties denied that they were not part of the decision. There's a strong suspicion that APC-led government had a hand in it.
Those were strategies designed to disenfranchise people from voting. The majority of those who would travel to go and vote are people from the southern part of Nigeria. The people in the north didn't need to travel to vote. So they voted and it favored them. So they worked well, they planned well, they plotted their strategies well. They wanted to retain power and they have retained power. What remains is what they are going to be able to do with this power that they are retaining. It
reminds me of this song, now that you have found love, what are you going to do with it?
Yes, yes. So it's not just enough to win the election, We need a leader that will advance the interests of Nigeria. Is Buhari capable of doing it? In the last 4 years, he has proven to be incapable. He has shown himself to be incompetent. He has shown himself to be a leader that takes sides with people who are of Fulani origin, who doesn't blink an eye when the herdsmen are killing other Nigerians. And so, will he continue like that? The next 4 years will tell.
Is there anything that gives any promise that he's going to act differently?
So far, no. I have had indications from El-Rufai that there might be plans to disband an NPC. If he succeeds in doing that, that would be a plus to him.
Would that help matters?
That would really help matters, because you can't have an oil corporation that keeps to itself about 30 to 40% of Nigerians earning from oil. That's unacceptable. Why the people who work and do business with NNPC are living larger than life, the people who should benefit from oil proceeds are starving.
And finally, there's this question of Buhari ruling with how the support of the House and Senate. And of course, eventually that seemed to be true, because the leader of the Senate eventually cross-carpeted and became an opposition leader, even the speaker. So is it fair enough to say, well, he didn't have the support of the Senate and House of Representatives to rule? Because the people that led the Senate and House of Rep were not in a sense, in the same platform with Buhari.
No.
That's Saraki and Dogara.
Oh, we didn't see the executive introduce any bill that was frustrated at the National Assembly. We didn't see the National Assembly take any steps in the last 4 years to frustrate the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, except the non-confirmation of the EFCC boss. There was nothing the National Assembly did that could be said
to be a cog
in the will of Buhari's administration. Buhari himself was incompetent, so he has no one to blame for his incompetence.
Well, thank you, Mr. B. Nigerians and friends of Nigerians who are watching across the globe, that's the fallout of 2019 elections. My guest here is Obi Nziadibe, who had agreed or who had postulated that the election was massively rigged. Some people would disenfranchise, and that APC had an agenda, and of course, is giving her the benefit of doubt that let's see what they are going to do with the 4 years that have been given. And of course, he also said a lot of people were intimidated in the elections. Of course, we saw that online, and let's see if APC, led by Buhari, will right the wrongs in the next 4 years. Nigerians are watching, and PMI is watching. If you are watching across the globe, I want to thank you for sticking with PMI International Political Arena. Obi, I want to thank you for coming to the program, sir.
Thank you.
And our producer behind the camera will be doing a good job. I want to thank you, and our friends around the globe. Keep tuning on to Platform Media. Catch us on Twitter, and Facebook, and Instagram. I'm yours sincerely, Joe Ehizode, signing off and say, have a good night rest. Bye-bye.